to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. Today we're going to be looking at how to be a better communicator, which is something that all of us needs. Everybody around the world has to communicate in one way, shape, or form. And my guest today is an expert on this topic, Michelle Gladieux, a communication expert, debate coach, executive coach, and author of Communicate with Courage, Taking Risks to Overcome the Four Hidden Challenges, brings years of experience in training leaders in almost every industry, as well as political candidates, for more impactful presentations. Michelle Gladieux, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Honored to be here, Bill. Thank you for all of your years of educating others.
We keep rolling the stone up the mountain. That's all we can do. But anyway, I'm so glad you could make it because this is such an important topic, and we all have to communicate, as I said, one way or the other. But let's jump off and just start right with your book, Communicate with Courage, Taking Risks to Overcome the Four Hidden Challenges. What was the main thrust of that book?
Well, I refer to it as a bravery manual, and I have become so close to thousands of clients and just meeting people where they are in their twisty journey of trying to send and receive messages with more skill so they can live happier, more productive, and more successful lives. That's really, I think, why I'm on the planet. And I'm very happy when I can work with a group of 15 or 30 or 300 or 1,500. But I was really desiring the ability to get this message out to more people that there are small things we can do, baby steps we can take to refine how we send and receive messages that result in a better world for everyone.
Exactly. Very, very, very true. Are you involved? I'm just curious. Are you involved with Toastmasters by any chance?
You know, I
Or
never
have
have been. I never have been because I've been presenting since, first grade and science fairs is when I started reading at church and things like that.
uh,
So I never really personally had the need to go to Toastmasters because the opportunities were all around me. However, I have had many coaching clients who have had good experiences and they've become more familiar with their voice through Toastmasters.
exactly. It's an excellent organization to help you communicate better and to listen better, which is even maybe as important as talking or whatever you do. So that's really important. Well, great. Well, who are some of the main groups that you've been involved with? Do you have certain industries or certain political candidates or folks like that, CEOs or
Yeah,
just
yeah. You
free?
name it. Anyone who has an employer or who is willing to invest in their personal and professional growth, or who maybe has an employer who isn't willing to invest in that, but contacts my team of eight and I on their own. And we're based out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, with team members around the Midwest. But we really have enjoyed over the last 20 years just traveling everywhere to get to know people in different industries, including, as you mentioned, manufacturing, hospitals, banks, non-for-profits, academia, government organizations. This topic of refining and polishing how we send messages is going to be applicable to everyone at every stage of their life, I think. And I don't think we graduate. We call some of our communication seminars things like excelling as a leader and mastering customer communication. And the truth is, not in this lifetime do you ever become perfect at it. So a good dose of humility and humor helps as well.
Exactly. It's a continuing education project. There's no doubt
Amen.
about it. That's for sure. Well, very good. Well, you deal with so many diverse personalities. What are some of the skills that you need to deal with these folks who come from different backgrounds, different experiences, academic levels, and things like that?
You bring up personality, and that's such a key point of our executive coaching programs. We always start with a personality assessment, coaching employees or executives, so that the client can see what makes them tick based in DNA and upbringing and life experiences that all combines to create the person that we present to the world at any age. So we like a robust personality assessment. And of course, my team and I have taken our own and we retake every year or two to see if we're moving the needle in some areas where we individually choose to set goals. Broadly speaking, we have about 8 billion humans on the planet, and there are only four main personality styles. And once we understand what mixture of those styles we possess, then we can adjust our approach when interacting with others to create, whatever you're looking for, better persuasion, better teaching, better sales, um, find a more open listening ear in that other person.
Mhm. What are the four personality styles you're talking about?
Ooh, I was hoping you would ask. Well, they're called different things by different assessments, but the terminology we use is driver for the highly assertive person who gets a lot done in one lifetime, but sometimes leaves others feeling less than or as if they've been too blunt, too task focused. There's the analyst, and each of us has some of each of this style, but we tend to have one or two that we use most of the time. The analyst is great at quality control and research and metrics and dealing with details. On the downside of that, an overused analyst strength is pessimism, becomes pessimism and perfectionism, which is hard on them and hard on everyone else. The third human social style is amiable. And if you have a lot of amiability in your style, you go along to get along. You would take the shirt off your back for a team member or family member, which is beautiful strength. The downside being amiability often also brings conflict avoidance because they really appreciate peace in the valley. So they might avoid challenging conversations that they need to have. And then the fourth style is the expressive style, and that's an outgoing, gregarious, charismatic, influential person who loves to build relationships and loves to talk. You might be guessing I have some of this, and you would be right. Downside is listening skills usually aren't as well developed as speaking skills in the expressive.
The very, very important. Yes. These skills are extremely important. Those personalities are excellent to have an idea of the people with whom you're interacting. I'm curious, are you involved internationally? I mean, what we're talking about today, we're talking about primarily in the United States, but this applies worldwide, really. Come right down to it. Are you involved internationally? Do you have
I
international clients or
Yeah, I've done some
people
training.
contact you from overseas?
No, not yet. It's usually American companies who are having a retreat or a conference.
Hmm.
So I've been to Paris to speak because an American company was doing a retreat in Paris. I've been to Mexico on many leadership retreats, focused more on working than on being out in the sun. But
Exactly.
maybe you can help me with that, Bill. You're one of the most connected people that I know. You got a lifetime of building relationships, but thank you for thinking that this kind of work would be useful internationally.
Mhm. At some point, I will predict you will go international. I feel
Okay.
confident that'll happen. Well,
Okay.
in your book, you say communication, I want to get this right, is a full body, full mind, and a full heart effort. What exactly do you mean by that?
I mean that when I am trying my darndest to wrangle my strengths so I don't overuse them, or to baby step into use of a communication skill that is not easy for me, I notice that I have to pay attention to my head to my feet, what's happening there, what message am I sending? I have to think about what's in my heart because emotionally intelligent, empathic message receivers, listeners, family members, team members, they can feel it too. And I also have to be thinking, what's the right word choice here? Do I want to state my intention? What am I hoping to get from this conversation? So when I'm at my best as a communicator, and that might happen, once every 24 hours or something, because life gets in the way. I know that I have all three of those categories or all three of those things working towards my aim of being a great communicator. My mind is involved, my body is involved, my heart is involved. When they align, then you have some superpowers happening as a communicator.
You certainly did. Now, you also referenced that there's a concept of hidden challenges in communication. What are some of these challenges?
Yes, sir. And I am proud to have boiled these down to be succinct and explained in 4 chapters in this book in less than 10 pages or so per chapter. That's what took several years to get it short to 140 words as a total book. The 4 challenges, hidden challenges. So I'm thinking they might be in your peripheral vision. And if we could turn and look and see and accept, we could get past them. Those are hiding from risk, not taking a chance when the right thing to do is take a chance because we care so much about the topic or the relationship. And the second is defying to be right. And I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on your show.
We normally don't.
Okay, then I'll say it's being so darn sure of yourself. just so darn sure that nobody can tell you anything because you know you've got all the facts or the best beliefs. Also, I noticed that we, all of us, sometimes rationalize the negative, and so we say things like, "Well, I could bring it up, but they won't do anything about it. He won't care. She won't listen. Nothing's going to change." And to that, I would say, you're right. Nothing will change until one person remembers the power of one person and gets past rationalizing the negative. And the fourth is settling for good enough, which is satisficing behavior. That's when we could stick our necks out a little more or give a little more effort or say, I love you, or offer an apology or say, I disagree, but I can understand your points. When we're not doing that, we're giving just sort of middling effort. And I advocate in the book that readers should choose a few things they really believe in and then decide to go for A plus or A minus in effort in those areas. Not at all the time, not every day, but a few times a day, we should make sure we go well beyond settling for good enough.
Yes, you do. You advocate for risk taking at times, but then argue on the other hand that sometimes it's better not to take a risk and to retreat, not retreat perhaps, but just not get us involved. How does one do that? What would be a concrete example of that?
Oh, a concrete example. Um, I know that I'm worth more and I'm not being paid what I'm worth perhaps by my employer, but I also have brought this up a few times and always been rebuffed by the organization. Maybe it's time to get my resume together and to start exploring other opportunities because I've got the clear message from my supervisor that the employer is doing the best they can do with pay. Or you're annoyed by someone and you want to point it out, but you're too angry to see clearly or speak diplomatically. So you wait until the next day after you've been fed and you have slept and you have refreshed yourself with a shower. And maybe now you're more ready to approach diplomatically and state your intention. And the list goes on and on. Risk is really engaging in a new behavior or mindset, the way I see it, with no guarantee of how it's going to go. But here we go back to values. You're willing to take a shot and take a chance and do your best as a communicator because it's about something that matters to you. And I'd recommend that our viewers and listeners, again, choose what matters to you. And we've got some great tools on our website at gladieuxconsulting.com that are easy to access and free. And the very first under free tools on the website is an exercise called Unique Mission. And it asks people, what do you most enjoy doing in your work or your volunteer life? For whom? And then what do they need? And how might they benefit from knowing you? And with those simple questions, if you jot down, even just a hundred words max, you get a picture of why you're here on the planet, and then you can move forward towards your communication goals even on bad days, when you don't feel good, when you've had an argument, when you're feeling down. I carry mine in my day planner. It is right to the side here. So if I have a setback, I go back and read, why am I here? I'm here to educate, inspire, and guide people towards growth. Who? The more diverse the audience, the better. What do they need? They might need some pro tips, some pro moves and strategies to help them get unstuck. And then how do they benefit? I hope they enjoy more success in life, personal and professional life. So I'd recommend figuring out your unique mission, and then that can be a beautiful foundation for whatever you hope to achieve.
And when we come back in just a moment, we'll talk about more pro moves. But I totally agree with you. Sometimes we should sleep on some of our ideas, really think through our strategies and not just rush headlong into some particular situation, either of acceptance or rejection or whatever the case might be, but take our time with that. Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is a privately funded, independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. We'd invite our viewers to go to our website at www.globalconnectionstelevision.com to view previous programs. Also, if you're involved with a PBS or a community access television station, or perhaps an educational institution that has an intra-campus television hookup, or you have a podcast, or just a computer, you like our shows and you would like to share them, please feel free to do so. Global Connections Television is provided at no cost as a public service to help us better understand international issues and how they impact our lives. Today, we're taking a look at the art of communication, which is absolutely critical to all of us. My guest is an expert on this topic. Michelle Gladieux, a communication expert, debate coach, executive coach, and author of Communicate with Courage, Taking Risks to Overcome the Four Hidden Challenges, is focusing on this topic today. Michelle, we were talking about pro moves. What would be an example, or what are some of the pro moves that one would need to factor into his or her arsenal of communication techniques?
Yeah. Well, pro move is just doing a little bit more than the average bear would do. A pro move is keeping your eyes open to the thousands of opportunities that are presented in everyday life to make a difference in your world or someone else's world. Actually, this world that we all share, right? And so it could be pausing long enough to thank someone for going above and beyond. Or it could be noticing when someone is trying but not yet succeeding, and simply, whether you text, whether you leave a voicemail, whether you write on paper, or whether you speak to them face to face saying, I see you trying, keep trying, it's going to make a difference. Like what you just said to me, Bill, pro move. You didn't have to say, when I answered you that we don't have a lot of international clients, you didn't have to say, I think you're going to. What you did for me there was help me envision a future where I can get this message out beyond the United States more easily. And now, because you believe, I'm more likely to believe. That was a very generous gift. It was a pro move, and it took you 30 seconds. And I want to make people aware it's the little stuff that makes the biggest difference when you're communicating. Maybe you're set to interrupt someone, like I often do, and that's something I'm working so hard on, and it's taking so long to try to overcome it. But they've said they've misspoken, or they've said something that's not true. Perhaps they've attributed something to you that's incorrect. Boy, do many of us want to jump in there, just get in the ring and say that, but maybe to let them finish the sentence to see where it's going without preparing your answer, to trust yourself, to know that you'll come up with what's important after you stay fully engaged in what they're saying. That's a pro move. So I think one of my team members counted up all the pro moves in this short book, and I know they came up with easily over 50, just pointed out in italics, like, that's a pro move, that's a pro move. And then after reading the book, the idea is, now you've got the recipe. Go and make up your own pro moves, because you're dealing with a different environment than I am, and you're going to see opportunities. Giving a little more than you have to, really.
Exactly, most assuredly. As you look around at leaders in the United States, overseas, do you have any heroes? I don't say heroes per se, but people that you like to listen to or want to hear them communicate, or you monitor them to see which techniques they use to be more effective and get their message across, or to be more involved in the conversation, or to be more sympathetic and empathetic to help people? Do you have any particular, let's say, people that you really are very fond of? Let's put it like that.
Yes, and I have written about many of them, and it's interesting in the book, and it's interesting. Most of the folks that I chose as role models to include in the book are the people that I know and speak with at least, once a month. And I found them to be more courageous, and they come from all different backgrounds, but I would say in many ways they're more courageous than me. And one was about just a neighbor who, growing up, was always sure to say, as we ended a conversation, I hung around with her kids. She was a mom in our block. She would say, "I love you, Shelley," and she said it so freely. And I think to myself now, what guts that took. I also, of course, monitor anybody on a political stage with a large audience. As my audiences are starting to grow larger and larger, I want to see how they handle these tough situations. For example, like political debates, I've had the pleasure of coaching some political candidates for debate and challenging them, to maybe warm it up or to dial down the emotion. But it really comes down to, you have to be yourself. Otherwise, you're going to come across as false. And that is the tricky thing about political debate. When I watch those, I think, when I read fact checking after, I think that is a lot of untruths on one stage from both parties in 1 hour, that I wouldn't want to replicate, but the guts they have to be judged by an entire country, I do admire. And for example, recently with Trump and Harris, I've seen things that they both do well.
What are some of the things they do well?
I think Trump is quite expert at audience analysis, and he does a good job of making points that work as hooks that definitely appeal to his base. With Kamala Harris, I've seen that she seems unafraid to be authentically herself, and she uses personal stories well. When my mom came to this country from India, she had a dream to cure cancer, and she helps put us in her shoes quite well. It's been interesting and exciting to watch the debates, and I always end up with 4 or 5 pages of notes after.
Oh, I'm sure
As I bet you do. As I bet
you
you
could
do.
probably write a book. I'm guessing. Well,
I
what?
think I prefer to help people with their personal lives and professional lives, and
Yeah,
I try not to give advice about politics, religion, etc.
right, exactly. Well, what are some of the, let's just say, the negative aspects of the two debaters that you saw?
Well, it seems now post-election that Harris's message did not resonate with all the groups that she hoped that they would, and that she hoped she would. And I am not a fan of some of Trump's choices of words and the way that he refers to certain groups. I try to be as respectful as possible always. As a communicator, my name is on my company to honor my deceased parents who believed greatly in the value of education. But I also know that that's my name that follows me, and that means a lot to me. So I, of course, wouldn't recommend that style to anyone I'm coaching.
Exactly. Now, you're not the mainstream media, obviously. You're not New York Times, AP, what have you, but a lot of criticism has been directed to the mainstream media, AP and different folks like that, because of the way they covered or didn't cover, especially some of the negative things that Trump said in particular, and maybe some of the ones also that Harris said that it didn't get into the print or on TV or whatever the case might be. But
Hmm.
there was a tremendous amount of negativity flying. Let's put it that way in this election, no doubt about it. What
Criticism
recommend,
about about
please?
how the election
Yeah.
was covered.
Oh, yes, please.
Oh no, I was asking you. You believe
Oh,
there's been
you're
a lot
asking
of
me.
criticism
Oh,
about
yeah,
how it
right. Yeah,
was
yeah.
covered. What do you think they could have
Right.
done better, Bill? I think you're more subject matter expert than me at that. What would you like to see?
Well, being in the media, my own personal observation is that so many of the items that Trump mentioned did not, well, let's say they weren't put in print or on the electronic media. For example, saying that he was going to weaponize the military to turn it against Americans. He was just randomly calling Harris a communist, a Marxist, a fascist, just on across the board. There's so many outlandish statements that were made talking about tariffs. And these tariffs, if they're implemented, they could literally crash the US economy and the international economy. But so often the media would bury these really acerbic statements and put them in paragraph 14 in a 15 paragraph article. And they didn't get on the front page of the New York Times. And there was definite bias in favor of Donald Trump. There's no doubt about that. And even the media people are saying that today. They go back and look at what happened. But it's something that the media really needs to work on because their reputation took a hit, a negative hit on this campaign, this election. But we can all try to help them improve, I guess, or we should try at any rate.
Like you said, we are climbing a mountain here, and we're never going to reach perfection as communicators.
Sisyphus rolling the stone. That's exactly right. Well, let me ask you, we only have about a minute left. What
Okay,
advice would you give to our viewers as to what they might want to do, how they may want to communicate better, and learn from what you've talked about, or what they could go out and research on their own?
okay. I would say I hope they'll visit our website, and I bet you'll have that in your show notes. That's gladioconsulting.com, where I have a lot more to say in coaches' corners and research summaries, but always trying to get right to the point because folks are busy. Generally speaking, it is a great idea to welcome constructive feedback from those who know you best, and also from those who have just met you because perhaps you spoke in a meeting or did a presentation or had an idea. Ask people, hey, how did that sound to you? How did I come across? What did you feel was my motive? What was helpful? What could have been more helpful? Always be building in opportunities to get some constructive feedback. You don't have to use it. You don't have to agree with it, but just to be courageous enough to hear it, you might want to polish some things about your style. And one more tip I'll share, two more tips. One more tip about praise. Give it to everyone around you often. You win, they win. Always, it must be sincere, but you'll see more of the behaviors you want to get from others if you praise the behaviors you want to see more of. And finally, when you do choose your communication goal, and I hope my book will be helpful to you, once you figure out what your goal is for the coming year, you can't do everything. Pick something and pick something that you can work on in personal and professional life, ideally. Then let the people around you know what you've selected so they can begin to see you differently. And honestly, so you get some credit for the work you're doing because it can change the tenor and tone of relationships. The quality of relationships changes when we change for the better. So does the relationship. But people might miss your changes if you're not vulnerable enough to speak what it is that you've become aware you need to work on. We're stereotyping creatures. We've got you figured out. That's dad. That's my significant other. That's my boss, my employee. They're always going to be that way. No, they're not. Humans can change, and we're always changing. Just advertise what you seek to change.
Exactly. Well, Michelle, those are all very helpful hints, and hopefully our viewers will follow up on them. I'm sure they will. But Michelle Gladieux, I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you. Keep up the great work.
My pleasure. Thank you. I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us today on Global Connections Television.